So straight off at the top of this video, I just need y'all to know that I didn't want to make this video, but we're gonna make the most of it. So at the time that you're watching this, I have turned 30. I've been 30 for a week or so at the time this video is going live, I believe. I also think I'm potentially in New York, but right now I'm still 29, and just after my 28th birthday, I made a list of 30 books to read before I turned 30 for like whatever reason I wanted to read them. I put them on this list. I will link the video in the description box if you guys want to go check it out and then hop back into this, because I'm not going to be really going into what the books are about and all of that kind of thing in this. I'm just gonna be telling you what I read and what I didn't, and then we're going to be having a little bit of a chat about it and like my thoughts on this video 2 years on. We're also not going to be reacting to that video because I actually have a list, and I have always had a list of all of the books that were in that video, so there's nothing like, there would be no surprises in there for me really. We're going to just kick off. We'll start with the books that I read, which isn't very many, as you're going to find out. So we're going to see some recurring themes here, but one of the ones that I read was The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. I put entire series in this video, okay, so this stood in for 3 because I wanted to read the entire Lord of the Rings series. I read this one book and then I DNF'd the rest. I don't like this series very much, which I'm not going to go into why in this video, but just Tolkien's writing style and the type of story that Lord of the Rings is just isn't really for me. I may revisit this series at a different time just because I want to read it to recognize like how far fantasy's come, like understand the roots of fantasy so that I can trace it like back to those roots. I also read Sabriel by Garth Nix. I read the first book, DNF'd the second, and then DNF'd the entire series. That was another complete fail. I had the complete works of Colleen Hoover on here. They were the last thing that I added just because some of the books were a little thicker and a little more like brain books in this video. And say what you want about Colleen Hoover, right? Okay, like all of your opinions are valid from your perspective. For me, she is a great author to read when my mental health is bad, because I find her plots shocking and unrealistic and wild, which really grips me, but I don't need a lot of concentration to get through her books, so it's like really quick, easy escapism for me. They're not all amazing, a lot of them are problematic, but they're a good time. So I read All Your Perfects, and I actually really liked this one. I also read Layla, and I didn't like that one. I started the like serialization thing that she did with Taryn Fisher, which is Never Never. I read the first part and just left it too long and lost interest and didn't continue. And there are tons of books that of hers that I haven't read that I don't own, like Hopeless, and I don't think I read Too Late either. She's also potentially got a couple of newer ones that I don't even own, but I also didn't read Regretting You or Reminders of Him, which I own. I still want to, I just didn't get around to them. I think I've picked up over the last 2 years, I've started getting more into contemporary romance a lot, so Colleen Hoover isn't the like exclusively the only like contemporary author that I read anymore, and that's potentially why I didn't get to as many as I thought I was going to. Of the ones that I didn't read at all, I had the entire Death Note series on there, which I still very much want to read. I'm actually thinking about picking this up this month, which means that this won't be valid by the time this video goes up, but the entire series was on there anyway, and I'm for sure not reading the entire series. It's just because I tend to prioritize sequels before I pick up like a new series when I can, and I'm in the middle of 2 different manga series, so that one didn't get picked up. We also have Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell, which has just gone on to my self-destructing books for 2023. If I haven't read this in 12 months, then I'm going to be unhauling it. 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. Murakami is actually, considering I'm not really into lit fic, Murakami is an author that I really enjoy, but I don't pick him up often because, especially over the last year or so, my mental health has been quite bad, and I don't have the brain power for thinking books like Murakami, or I haven't. I'm feeling a lot better now, but just in general over the last year it was a bit rough. I like Murakami because even though he's lit ficky, he's also very speculative, and I would say that this is the most speculative or fantastical synopses of all of his books that I have read. But I'm very excited to get into this at some point. And then we had a couple of classics actually. The first one I own, which is Jane Eyre. I still really want to read this. I am a big Bronte fan. I love drama. I love the gothic atmosphere. I love people like flinging themselves around malls, crying and like throwing themselves on the ground. It's a good vibe for me. So I do think I'll really enjoy this one, but like with Murakami, like classics take more time. They take more brain power, and so I don't reach for them as often. The other classic, I don't know if I'm ever going to read, that's Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I don't actually, when I put this on, I wanted to read it because I feel like I should, because I feel like it's the classic. Realistically, nothing draws me to Jane Austen, or especially Pride and Prejudice, and nothing ever has, which I do find interesting because I do really like romance and it is romantic in nature. So in theory, I feel like I would potentially like Pride and Prejudice. I just really don't find it appealing at all. So we'll see about that one if I ever get to it in the future. If I never read this in my life, I would not be surprised. There's a couple that I own that I just forgot to pull off the shelves. There was the 5th season series by N.K. Jemisin. Haven't even started it. I did read the Dreamblood duology and didn't like it, but all of N.K. Jemisin's books are very different, so I am still going to give 5th season a go. And I've heard, I don't doubt that I'm going to love the first book, because I don't think I know a single person who doesn't, to be fair. We also had A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, which I'm curious about this book, okay? It's lit fic, so I would never in a million years pick it up, but I'm just curious about what this book contains that makes everyone cry so much, especially as somebody who doesn't really cry. So I want to see if it will elicit that emotional response from me. I have heard that it is very like exploitative and it's very like torture porny, like it's desolate for the sake of being desolate. So if I do ever pick this up, it will solely be my curiosity that gets me there. And the other one that I own and didn't pull, which is the last one, is Battle Royale by Kushan Takami, which I do still want to read. I just haven't heard the best things about the book, really. I love the movie, which is why I have it, but a lot of people generally, I've heard, prefer the movie, but that is one that I definitely intend to get to. I'm still very excited to read. Typically, I don't really pick up standalones over series, so that could contribute to why I didn't read that. But anyway, there's a big old stack of books here that I said that I wanted to read for whatever reason before I turned 30. So before this landmark in my life, I felt like this was a key list of books that I needed to have checked off. And something that I do definitely remember saying in that video is that I would feel like a massive failure. Like I feel like I have to do it because this landmark in my life is approaching, and I've said that I want to read these books before that landmark hits. And actually what I've mainly realized, my biggest takeaway from this, is that I'm not the same person that I was 2 years ago, and reading Pride and Prejudice isn't going to make me a better person. It's not even going to make me better at my job. It's not going to make me better at reviewing books, because the books that I generally read aren't even like Pride and Prejudice. So having read the classic that I view as the classic pretty much is going to be diddly squat to my life. It's like over the last 2 years, essentially what's happened to me, to my life, is that last year my mental health was abysmal. Starting off roughly, I think it was the end of March, maybe April, right through until I want to say about October, November, I had the worst mental health I've ever had in my life. And there were a couple of contributing factors. Some of them were mental, and I have fixed, or I'm working on those ones. And some of them are more health related, which we're currently in the process of like sorting that kind of thing out. But throughout that process, I kind of realized what was important to me. And through getting better, through feeling better, I've realized that for a lot of my life, I held on to these really strict, rigid things. I don't like making decisions. They make me very panicky. So I have like predetermined processes that my brain goes through to make decisions based on chance instead of having to actually pick something. And that leaked into lists of books and TBRs. Like back when I made this video, I was still doing a monthly TBR where I was like, these are the books that I have to read in the month, and I would beat myself up if I didn't. Since then, I've kind of just realized it's not that deep. I also had a tarot reading last October that has encouraged me to be more spontaneous and say yes to a lot more things and kind of let go of these strict, rigid things that I was upholding for absolutely no reason. This list being one of those things. And so now I feel like the most important takeaway, the most important follow-up to that video is that those lists of 30 books to read before 30 don't matter. There are so many ways that we can fail in this world. There are so many ways that we can feel inferior that are outside of our control. Why would I make a list of 30 books that I had to read before a certain date and then put so much pressure on myself and say like, if I don't read these books, I'm going to feel like a failure? failure. Why am I making myself feel like that when I literally have the power to just take that away and not put that pressure on myself? And pressure, like unnecessary pressure, and the stripping away from that has been integral to me over this last year. And it's in my personal life, it's also in my work, it's also in the way that I read, and just being more in the moment, more spontaneous, and just stripping away pressure that doesn't need to be there, because there's so much pressure in this world, there's so much pressure in life that you don't need to add to it. I don't need to add to it for myself because there's so much else going on. So that's my biggest takeaway from this, essentially. I'm just not the same person that I was. I am though, really. So I still need some structure, I still need some routine, I still need a little bit of order in my life, but there is a balance. Like I had a thing, I do still a little bit about control and routine, but I just needed to let go a little bit. So realistically, I wouldn't have made this video if I felt now the way that I felt then. Like I wouldn't have made a list of 30 books to read before I turned 30. But also, like, in regard to turning 30, I feel like I remember when I filmed this video that was scary to me, and now it's not. Because hand in hand with that acceptance and stripping of pressure, we can't help but age. I can't help but turn 30. I would love, I'm sure if I could, I'm sure I would love to live in my 20s forever. That's not realistic. So 30 actually isn't scary to me anymore, because 30 is not old. It's not like I don't feel old, and I'm not gonna feel, well, I'm assuming, because like I said, when you're watching this I'm 30, when I'm filming this I'm not, but I don't feel like I'm gonna feel any different when I'm 30 than I do at 29 right now. So instead of worrying and fretting and dreading turning 30, I've actually planned an amazing year for myself this year. I'm doing so much. I've said yes to so much. I'm feeling so much more spontaneous, and I'm doing things that I 100% would not have done 2 years ago, and I wouldn't have even done, I especially wouldn't have done a year ago. So instead of fretting and worrying about turning 30, I'm now focusing on making every year full of adventure and experience and life. Because now, while aging, or at least turning 30, doesn't scare me, continuing to live my life the way I was, constrained by all of these self-imposed rules and regulations, is what scares me. So I'm choosing instead to fill my years hopefully with things. So yeah, that was just a dump of my thoughts. I feel like the important part of this video wasn't whether I read the books, it was the attitude that I have and how that differed from the moment when I made this video. That is the more important part of this follow-up for me. So I hope that you guys didn't mind it, because I didn't plan this video at all. It was just a brain dump, essentially. I'm doing really good. I know some of you guys have been watching me struggle for quite some time, but I'm doing really good now. And thank you for sticking with me throughout this entire process. Just this entire process. I was 24 when I started my channel, and I just turned 30, guys. So yeah, down in the comments, I don't know, because this was more of just an informal chat. Down in the comments, put a birthday cake, even though it is like a week or so after my birthday by the time you're watching this. And aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna. You head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish Candle website, the Etsy for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you're go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.